Hey everyone, welcome to the Bold and Beautiful 24. I'm Alessio, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love bold and beautiful, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in.
The day Luna Nozawa's world shifted forever didn't come quietly. It roared like a storm that nobody in Los Angeles was ready for. The heavy gates of the correctional facility sat beneath a gray, cloud-filled sky, as though even the heavens knew that something was about to break loose. Luna had spent endless nights pacing the narrow floor of her cell, feeling the suffocating weight of each passing hour. She wasn't supposed to be here, at least not like this, not locked away like some kind of monster. Every beat of her heart echoed in the silence of that prison, and every breath she took felt like a war against the life that had been stolen from her. She had replayed the moment of her arrest 1,000 times, that humiliating, soul-shattering moment when she'd been handcuffed, shoved into the back of a police car, and left to face a future that felt colder than steel. Now, as the sun hid behind low clouds, Luna's decision had already been made. She wasn't going to spend another day behind these walls. She was going to run, even if it meant setting the entire city on fire with the chaos she'd unleash. The escape wasn't some wild, impulsive move. Luna had spent weeks quietly observing the patterns of the guards, memorizing the shift changes, the sound of every gate latch, every clanging door. She learned which officers took their cigarette breaks longer than they should, and which ones had a bad habit of leaving their keycards dangling carelessly. She'd never been the type of woman who accepted defeat easily, not when her entire life had been about fighting for a place in a world that had often tried to silence her. When the opportunity finally presented itself, a guard distracted, a security door left cracked open for maintenance, Luna didn't hesitate. She moved like a ghost through the dim corridors, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She kept her breathing shallow, every step measured and silent. The alarm hadn't sounded yet. For a split second it almost felt like fate was on her side. But fate has a cruel way of testing people. The moment Luna slipped through the final exterior door, a motion sensor caught the faint movement of her body. Somewhere deep inside the control room, red lights began to flash. A piercing siren erupted across the entire prison compound, slicing through the early evening air like a knife. The sound made her knees shake, but she forced herself to keep moving. Luna sprinted across the gravel barefoot, clutching a stolen jacket around her as cold air hit her face. She didn't dare look back, she couldn't. The moment she did, she'd freeze, and freezing meant going back. She could already hear the distant shouting of guards, the chaotic shuffle of boots, the clicking of radios calling for backup. But she was fast, and she'd planned this too well to stop now. The city outside was both familiar and foreign. It had been months since Luna had last seen the lights of Los Angeles without bars between her and the sky. She ran across the overgrown field that bordered the facility, ignoring the way her lungs burned, ignoring the small rocks cutting into her feet. She had to get away. Away from the humiliation, away from the whispers, away from the people who wanted her locked up for life. But most of all, she needed to get away from the ones who had betrayed her. Her mind raced to the faces that had turned against her, the cold glares, the whispered accusations. They thought they could bury her in that place and forget she ever existed. Not a chance. Luna Nozawa was not going to disappear. Meanwhile, across town, Will Spencer was sitting in the living room of the sprawling Spencer estate, restlessly tapping his fingers against the arm of the couch. Ever since the day Luna had been sentenced, something inside Will had been twisted in knots. He had told himself that it was over, that Luna's imprisonment meant their twisted, complicated connection was done. But deep down he'd never really stopped thinking about her. His phone buzzed on the table, and when he glanced down at the notification, the blood drained from his face. It was a direct alert from the LAPD, a name that made his chest tighten. Escape Luna Nozawa. Considered dangerous. Last seen heading north from correctional facility. Will sat upright, his pulse hammering. No, he whispered under his breath, gripping the phone so tightly his knuckles went white. Luna had actually done it. She'd escaped, and if she was out, she might be coming straight for him. Before Will could even gather his thoughts, a second call came through. It was Deputy Chief Bradley Baker. Will, Baker's voice snapped through the line, sharp and urgent. We have a situation. Luna Nozawa escaped from custody. I need to know if you've had any contact with her, or if she's reached out in any way. Will's voice came out shaky. No, nothing. But if she's out, she'll come for me, won't she? There was a pause, the kind of heavy silence that spoke louder than any words. We can't rule anything out, Baker finally said. Stay where you are. Lock everything down. We're on it. But Will couldn't just sit there and wait. He wasn't that kind of person. This was Luna, the woman who had torn through his life like a wildfire. He knew her better than anyone else. If she was running, she wasn't just looking to disappear. She was looking to finish what she started. Against Baker's warning, Will grabbed his keys, stormed out of the house, and jumped into his car. His mind was spinning. Anger, fear, adrenaline all mixing together in a way that made it hard to breathe. Luna wasn't just some fugitive. She was someone who had been part of his story, someone whose choices had dragged him into a world he never wanted to be part of. And now that she was out, their paths were destined to collide again. Back at the correctional facility, Baker was coordinating the manhunt with surgical precision. He barked orders into his radio, deploying units to all major roads, setting up checkpoints, and alerting the media to issue warnings to the public. He'd dealt with countless fugitives over his long career, but something about this one felt different. Luna Nozawa wasn't some hardened criminal. She was smart, unpredictable, emotionally driven. That made her dangerous in a way most people didn't understand. Baker knew she wouldn't just run blindly into the night. She'd have a plan, or at least some kind of twisted path carved in her mind. And if Will Spencer was part of her past, Baker had a bad feeling he'd be part of her next move too. As the chase intensified, Luna found herself stumbling down a hidden path that ran behind the prison grounds, one she discovered during her carefully planned escape. Her breath came in sharp gasps, her body trembling from exhaustion and fear, but the fire in her chest kept her going. The night wrapped around her like a cloak, but sirens in the distance reminded her that time was running out. She needed a car. She needed a phone. She needed to disappear. A distant set of headlights flickered at the edge of the road ahead. A delivery van pulled over by the side of the highway. Luna pressed herself against a fence, watching as the driver stepped out to make a call. This was her shot. She waited until he turned his back, then ran forward fast and silent. She climbed into the driver's seat, hands trembling as she fumbled with the keys still in the ignition. For a second, the old engine hesitated, and Luna's heart nearly stopped. But then it roared to life. She slammed her foot on the gas and shot onto the road, tires screeching. By the time Baker's team reached the highway, Luna was already miles ahead. Will, on the other hand, was speeding through the city in his own car. His jaw clenched, knuckles white on the steering wheel. He could still remember the way Luna used to look at him. Equal parts love, rage, and pain. Their story had been complicated from the start, but it had ended with betrayal, handcuffs, and courtrooms. Now everything was spinning out of control. He kept telling himself he should have stayed home, but something deep inside him needed to face her, to end this once and for all. Whether it was to stop her, or to understand her. Baker's radio crackled with a report, stolen vehicle, matching the location where Luna had last been seen. We've got her trail, Baker barked. Let's move. The chase was on. Flashing lights tore through the streets of Los Angeles as squad cars joined in pursuit. Will's car fell into the mix, even though he wasn't supposed to be there. When Baker realized Will was on the same road, he cursed under his breath. Spencer, I told you to stay put. But Will didn't listen. She's not going to get away, he growled into the phone. Not this time. Luna's stolen van swerved through traffic, horns blaring around her. She could see the flashing lights in her rearview mirror, growing closer with every second. Panic clawed at her chest, but she forced herself to keep control. She wasn't going back. She couldn't. Her mind spun with all the unfinished business she had out there. The people who had hurt her, the secrets that had never been told. This wasn't just about running. This was about reclaiming what was hers, whatever that meant now. As the sirens closed in, she took a hard right down a narrow road, hoping to lose them in the maze of industrial warehouses ahead. Baker followed with practiced precision, coordinating his units to cut off every exit. But Will took a different path. He knew how Luna thought. He'd seen her run before, seen the way she calculated, always staying one step ahead. When the squad car circled the main road, Will cut through an alley, racing toward a spot he knew she'd end up. And sure enough, just moments later, he saw the van swerve into view. Their eyes met through the windshield, just for a split second, but it felt like everything else disappeared. Time slowed. The world narrowed down to the two of them. Luna's expression was wild, a mix of desperation and fury. Will could see it, the same fire that had always burned inside her. He shouted her name, even though she couldn't hear him through the glass. She yanked the steering wheel, trying to get past him, but Will swerved to block her. Tires screeched. Baker's squad cars flooded in from behind, surrounding the warehouse lot like a trap snapping shut. Luna slammed the brakes, the van spinning slightly as she came to a stop. The flashing red and blue lights washed over her face, and for the first time since she'd escaped, her breath caught. It was over, or maybe it was just beginning. Baker stepped out of his car, gun drawn but steady. "Luna Nozawa," his voice boomed through the loudspeaker. "Step out of the vehicle with your hands where I can see them." For a moment Luna didn't move. Her hands clenched the wheel, her chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. She thought of everything, the betrayal, the nights in her cell, the way Will had looked at her in court. Her entire life had been boiled down to this one moment. Then slowly she pushed open the door and stepped out, the cold night wind whipping her hair across her face. Will got out of his car too, unable to stop himself. "Luna!" he shouted. His voice cracked, and for a moment, it wasn't the voice of someone chasing a fugitive. It was the voice of someone who still remembered what they'd been to each other. Luna's eyes locked onto his, and for a heartbeat, something softer flickered in her expression. But then Baker's voice cut through the air again, sharp and commanding. "Hands up, Luna. It's over." But Luna wasn't the type to go down easily. Even as officers moved in, her mind was still racing. She took a step back, her bare feet scraping against the rough pavement. Will saw the movement and instinctively moved closer, raising a hand as if he could reach her. "Don't," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Don't make this worse." But Luna had already made her choice when she walked out of that prison. She wasn't surrendering, not yet. She spun around, bolting toward the edge of the warehouse yard, trying to slip through the smallest gap between two patrol cars. Baker cursed and shouted commands. Officers swarmed. Will broke into a sprint too, chasing after her without thinking. "Luna!" he roared. The sound of heavy footsteps, radios crackling, and adrenaline-charged breathing filled the night. Luna's hair streamed behind her, her heart hammering like a drum in her chest. She could see the open street just beyond the fence, freedom just a few feet away. But Baker had anticipated the move. He cut her off from the side, his arm shooting out like a wall. Luna skidded to a stop, stumbling, but Will grabbed her from behind, pulling her into his arms before she could bolt again. The world around them blurred into chaos. Shouting officers, flashing lights, the sharp metallic taste of fear and exhaustion. Luna struggled in Will's grip, her nails digging into his arm. "Let me go," she hissed, her voice trembling but fierce. "I can't," Will whispered back, his breath hot against her ear. "I can't let you do this anymore." Baker moved in with his team, handcuffs ready, every movement precise and practiced. But in that the night didn't end with Luna back in handcuffs. It only deepened the fracture lines between everyone connected to her. Hours after the chaotic chase, the quiet hum of the Los Angeles police headquarters was anything but calm. Reporters had already gotten wind of the escape and the capture, and headlines were racing through social media faster than the truth itself. Fugitive Luna Nozawa recaptured in dramatic chase. That's what the city would remember. But for the people actually involved, nothing felt so clean, nothing felt so simple. Inside the small, sterile interrogation room, Luna sat in the metal chair, her wrists cuffed tightly to the table. The fluorescent light above flickered occasionally, casting her in sharp shadows that made her look both dangerous and heartbreakingly human. Her hair was a mess from the chase, her bare feet scraped and bruised, her knuckles raw from pounding against fences. But her eyes, those wild, defiant eyes, were what made every officer on the other side of the mirror take a step back. She didn't look broken. She looked alive. Fiercely alive. She didn't regret it. Not for a second. Deputy Chief Bradley Baker walked in with his usual calm authority, But even he couldn't pretend this was just another fugitive case. He'd seen Luna before. He'd seen her in the courtroom, seen the chaos she caused in the lives of the Spencers and Forresters. And now, after everything, she sat there like a storm in a bottle, contained but ready to explode at the slightest shake. Baker dropped a thick folder onto the table with a heavy thud. "You really outdid yourself this time, Luna," he said slowly, pulling out a chair across from her. "Breaking out of a maximum security facility? You made every news network in California tonight." Luna leaned back as far as the cuffs would allow, her lips curling slightly into something between a smirk and a scowl. "Then I guess they finally have something interesting to report," she said, her voice low but steady. Baker didn't take the bait. He'd dealt with people who played games before, but there was something about Luna that made everything feel more personal. Maybe it was because she wasn't the typical criminal. She wasn't hardened. She wasn't heartless. She was dangerous because she felt too much, and because she was smart enough to act on it. "You almost got yourself killed out there," Baker continued. "You know that, right? One wrong turn, one wrong move, and we wouldn't be talking right now." Luna tilted her head. "Maybe that would have been better," she muttered under her breath. Baker's jaw tightened, but he pushed the emotion down. "Or maybe," he countered, "you just wanted to make a mess. Maybe this wasn't about escaping at all. Maybe this was about sending a message." Her silence told him more than words ever could. While Luna sat in that room, Will Spencer was pacing the floor of the Spencer estate, his mind spinning out of control. He had chased after her against every warning, had thrown himself into a manhunt without backup, and he could still feel the way her body trembled in his arms when he caught her. There had been something raw in that moment, something that ripped open wounds he thought he'd buried. He couldn't stop seeing her eyes. Not the defiance. The pain. Katie Logan walked in quietly, watching her son with growing concern. "Will," she said softly, "you need to slow down. Sit. Breathe." Will shook his head, running a hand through his hair. "She was right there, Mom. Right in front of me. It wasn't just some headline on the news this time. It was her. And when I looked at her, it wasn't just anger. It wasn't just fear. It was everything. Everything we didn't say, everything we didn't finish." Katie frowned, her voice gentle but firm. "Will, she escaped from prison. She's not some lost girl who made a mistake. She's dangerous. You need to remember that." But Will didn't answer. He couldn't explain it, the way Luna made everything so complicated. She wasn't just some criminal to him. She was the woman who had once held his secrets, who had stood too close, whispered too much, and left his life in shambles. And now, with her back in custody, something inside him felt like it was twisting tighter and tighter, pulling him into a storm he couldn't escape. Back at the station, Baker leaned across the table. "I want to know why, Luna. Why risk everything? Why make your sentence worse? You knew we'd catch you eventually." Luna laughed softly, bitterly. "You really don't get it, do you? I wasn't trying to run away from you. I was trying to run to something." Baker's eyes narrowed. "To what?" Her jaw tightened. The truth. The way she said it made him pause. There was something in her tone. Something that hinted at a story bigger than anyone had bothered to uncover. Baker had been in law enforcement long enough to know when a fugitive was bluffing, and when they were carrying a secret that could blow everything wide open. Luna didn't sound like someone who wanted pity. She sounded like someone who was holding a match over gasoline. Meanwhile, Rich Forrester and Steffi Forrester Finnegan were already hearing the news at Forrester Creations. The moment Luna's name hit the airwaves, whispers filled the design floor. People stared at their phones, shaking their heads, talking in hushed voices. Rich sat behind his desk, pinching the bridge of his nose. "This is bad," he muttered. "This is really bad." Steffi crossed her arms, her voice sharp with frustration. "Bad? Dad, this is a disaster. She broke out of prison. Do you have any idea how this looks? Everyone knows she has ties to us. She's connected to the Forresters, to the Spencers. She's not some random criminal on the run, she's family adjacent. This is going to blow up in our faces." Rich exhaled slowly. He knew she was right. No matter what they did, Luna's name was tangled in their legacy now. As the hours passed, Baker called Will down to the station. It wasn't a request. "I need you here," he said curtly over the phone. "She's not talking to anyone else. But she might talk to you.